This one is called Karma Police.
The last chord of a moon-shaped pool still hung in the air when the ground began to crack. It was 2016. Thom Yorke's voice, thin, fragile, almost pleading, had just sung "I'm Not Living, I'm Just Killing Time" on True Love Waits, a song the band had carried like a bruise for 2 decades. The album was a requiem in slow motion, built from strings and silence, and it arrived the same month that Rachel Owen, Yorke's partner of 23 years, was diagnosed with the cancer that would ultimately take her life before the year ended. In a 2025 interview, Yorke would comment on the past decade. "I hadn't really given myself time to grieve. It was coming out in ways that made me think, I need to take this away." They toured anyway. 77 shows from Mexico City to Montreal, Libsyn to Philadelphia. The final night was August 1, 2018, at the Wells Fargo Center. Backstage, the bowls of free sweets. They still delighted the kids, now older. Yorke's Noah and Agnes, O'Brien's teenagers, Phil Selway's youngest. On stage, the band played Karma Police like a lullaby and Idiotech like a panic attack. The crowd sang every word. No one knew it was the end. The shows felt great, Yorke remembers, but it was like, let's halt now before we walk off this cliff. Ed O'Brien felt it most acutely, stating, "I was effectively over Radiohead. I enjoyed the gigs, but hated the rest. We felt disconnected. Fucking spent." The wheels, as Yorke puts it, had come off. As the final echo of that Philadelphia night faded into August heat, the 5 men packed away their instruments and stepped into separate orbits. There was no press release, no farewell, tour, just a quiet vanishing act. What followed was a dispersal, solo albums, film scores, a book of Polaroids, a new band called The Smile that sounded like Radiohead's Restless Shadow. Yet the silence carried weight. A single Tel Aviv concert from 2017 kept resurfacing like a bad dream, dragging them into a firestorm of accusations, boycotts, and midnight arguments about art, complicity, and the limits of loyalty. 7 years later, in a London rehearsal room thick with dust and old cables, they would plug in again, now older, scarred, unsure if the songs still fit. Today we unpack it all in a slightly different episode. Hi, I'm Andy, host of Poetic Wax, a weekly music history series where I dig into the record collection I've been building since the 1990s and explore the history of a band, album, or song from within. Today we're looking at Radiohead's Lost Decade.
Wake from your sleep.
Rachel Owen was never the type to chase spotlights. A Welsh artist and printmaker with a PhD in medieval Italian literature, she met Thom Yorke in the late 1980s at Exeter University. And back then, they were just 2 art students sketching futures in charcoal and doubt. They built a life in Oxford's quiet corners. Noah arrived in 2001, Agnes in 2004. Owen lectured at Pembroke College, blending photography with etchings that whispered of hidden histories, while Yorke wrestled with fame's glare. Theirs was a private orbit, 23 years of highly creative and happy tandem, as Yorke called it, when they separated amicably in 2015 for reasons that stayed theirs alone. But the unraveling came swift and merciless. Diagnosed with cancer in the spring of 2016, Owen fought through the summer, teaching until her body betrayed her. A moon-shaped pool, recorded in fits and starts amid the haze, became their unintended elegy. Quote, "Half my life," Yorke murmurs backward at the end of Daydreaming, touches on the time they spent together. It's a hidden scar, played in reverse like a secret, too raw to face forward. On Identikit, he loops Broken Hearts Make It Rain, the strings swelling like storm clouds over a parched heart. True Love Waits, dusted off from 2 decades of live purgatory, never able to be completed, lands as the closer, ending with 3 heartbreaking words: "Just don't leave." Fans parsed it as a divorce dirge, but Owen's shadow lingered in every chord. Her illness, a silent co-writer. She slipped away on December 18, 2016, at just 48, mere months after the album's May release. Yorke, in the numb aftermath, issued no public statement. Instead, he retreated into the metaphorical potting shed, tinkering with devices while the world speculated. 3 years later, on BBC's Desert Island Discs, the dam cracked. When the kid's mum died, it was a very difficult period, and we went through a lot. It was very hard. She suffered a great deal. He spoke of Noah and Agnes, then teens navigating the void. Quote, I can't hope to be their mum, but we're all right. I'm just really proud of them both. It stuns me most days. I can't believe they're anything to do with me. They're just such great people. Grief for Yorke wasn't a tidy arc. It was leaked into everything. It was difficult to work after that happened, he admitted to the New York Times in 2019, the strings of a new project pulling like fresh wounds. Yet Diana Roncion, the Italian actress he'd met on the Suspiria set, became a quiet anchor. I'm lucky now because I have a new partner who has come and brought light into all of it, he said, which has taken a great deal of strength. Owen's absence echoed in fan corners too. Reddit threads bloomed with fuck cancer laments and I'm not living, I'm just killing time lines from the album now etched with her name. Radiohead dedicated the 2017 OK Not OK reissue to her, a footnote in fine print, but the real tribute was the silence that followed. The slow mend of a man learning to grieve without spectacle. In the end, Owen's legacy wasn't footnotes or hidden tracks. It was the quiet force behind Yorke's relentless art, the one who grounded his chaos. Quote, my ambition is to make sure that we have come out of it all right, he said simply, and I hope that's what's happening. In a life spent turning private storms into public anthems, it was the quietest truth he'd ever let slip. And until that point, the silence was deafening. So Radiohead did not break up. They just simply stopped. Jonny Greenwood wrote film scores. Paul Thomas Anderson's Phantom Thread, The Power of the Dog, and now One Battle After Another. Taylor Swift calls his work genius. Colin Greenwood played bass for Nick Cave and published a book of grainy tour photos. Philip Selway and Ed O'Brien released solo albums that sounded like men learning to breathe again. Thom put out a few solo works, starting with Suspiria in 2018 and followed by Anima in 2019. Then there was Confidenza in 2024 and Tall Tales in 2025, the latter of which he was joined by Mark Pritchard. But the real lightning rod was the smile. Yorke formed the band in 2020 with Jonny and drummer Tom Skinner, best known as the jazz heartbeat of Sons of Kemet. 3 albums in 3 years. A light for attracting attention in 2022. Then Wall of Eyes and Cutouts both in 2024. Gnarlier, angrier, faster, jagged riffs, warped electronics, and Yorke snarling like a man who'd swallowed glass. Quote, the smile was never meant to replace Radiohead, Yorke told the New Yorker in 2022. It was a way to keep moving when standing still felt like dying. It was also a pressure valve. Where Radiohead had become a vast, sacred, untouchable cathedral, the Smile was a back alley fight club. I remember being hypnotized by The Smoke, one of the first tracks released off of The Smile's debut album. And that track still haunts me to this day. Critics called it Radiohead on amphetamines, and fans called it salvation. And in a way, it was political in ways that Radiohead never dared. The Smiles' debut single, You Will Never Work in Television Again, arrived in January 2022, just days after the band had quietly played a live stream from a London warehouse. The song's lyrics aimed directly toward predatory men in power. Yorke later confirmed it was about the whole Harvey Weinstein thing, but also every politician who thinks they're untouchable. Then came Wall of Eyes, the title track, a slow burn elegy with strings arranged by the London Contemporary Orchestra. It felt like a direct descendant of A Moon-Shaped Pool. But Wall of Eyes was something darker, a song about being watched, judged, and cancelled. Was this Yorke's response to the witch hunt? To the Tel Aviv fallout? Was it a plea to be left alone, or just paranoia dressed up as art? You tell me. I'd like to know. But keep it constructive. The Smile became a diplomatic tightrope. Yorke still leaned on Radiohead's Ghosts. Wall of Eyes was recorded in the same Oxfordshire barn where In Rainbows was born. Stanley Donwood, Radiohead's visual architect, designed every cover. The Smile is Radiohead without the baggage, Yorke told Rolling Stone. But the baggage is still in the room. You can't outrun it. He also curated an exhibition at the Ashmolean with Donwood and mixed Radiohead songs into a production of Hamlet called Hail to the Thief. Music was still his oxygen, even when it hurt. There have been points where I've looked for solace in music and played the piano, but it literally hurts, he said. Physically. The music hurts because you're going through trauma. Meanwhile, the world kept spinning. TikTok discovered Let Down, a deep cut from OK Computer, and sent it to the Billboard Hot 100, 28 years late. But the silence from the five-piece was deafening. No posts, no statements. Just the slow drip of side projects and the growing certainty that Radiohead, as the world knew it, was over. And that brings us to a deeper discussion of Israel and the supposed witch hunt. In 2017, Radiohead played Tel Aviv. The Palestinian movement Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions, or BDS, called for boycott. Roger Waters called them cowards. Ken Loach called them complicit. On the night, a man in a suit, clearly a high-ranking official, approached Yorke in the hotel lobby to thank him. Yorke's skin crawled. Quote, "It horrified me truly that the gig was being hijacked." He says, "Get me the fuck out." On stage, the tension was electric. Israeli fans sang Karma Police like a prayer. Yorke stared past the lights, jaw tight, singing, "This is what you get," like a warning to everyone in the room.
This is what you get. This is what you get.
Jonny Greenwood's position was different. Married to Israeli artist Sharona Katan, he had collaborated for years with Dudu Tassa, recording albums with musicians from Iraq, from Egypt, from Syria, Tunisia, and Palestine. In 2023, they released Jirak Karabakh, Your Neighbor is Your Friend. Tassa played a show for IDF soldiers. Greenwood played in Tel Aviv, 2024. BDS's response? Greenwood is normalizing apartheid. Earlier that year, activists forced the cancellation of their Bristol and London gigs. Venues buckled under threats and security concerns. Ticket holders were refunded in silence. And BDS has called for a boycott of the new Radiohead tour. More on that in a bit. It's nuts. The only thing that I'm ashamed of is that I've dragged Thom and the others into this mess. But I'm not ashamed of working with Arab and Jewish musicians. I can't apologize for that. This wakes me up at night, Yorke says. They're telling me what I've done with my life, what I should do next, that what I think is meaningless. It's a purity test, a low-level Arthur Miller witch hunt. At a solo show in Melbourne last year, a heckler screamed, "How can you be silent?" And Yorke snapped, "Come up here and say that. You want to piss on everyone's night?" He stormed off, returned for just one more song.
Right here, come on. Come up on the fucking stage and say what you want to say. Don't stand there like a coward. Come here and say it. You want to piss on everybody's night? Come on.
Get him out!
Okay, you do. See you later.
He posted a 400-word statement on Instagram, which included the following. "Some guy shouting at me from the dark didn't seem like the best moment to discuss the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza." Jonny, quieter, sighed in an interview. "The left look for traitors, the right for converts. It's depressing that we are the closest they can get." "I would absolutely not play Israel again," Yorke says now. Jonny replies, "I would politely disagree. A boycott just lets the government say everyone hates us. We should do exactly what we want." Ed O'Brien posted Free Palestine. Philip Selway called BDS's demand to disown Jonny impossible. Colin Greenwood remembers 9/11 when American fans screamed at Yorke to say something from the Berlin stage. Yorke had finally muttered, "What do you want me to say?" This isn't quiet canceling. Even today, I get comments on my Radiohead videos about the controversy. BDS's official line on the 2025 tour, Radiohead continues with its complicit silence, while one band member repeatedly crosses our picket line. At its core, the fight isn't with the people of Israel or the people of Palestine. It's with the politicians who hijack their names. You can stand shoulder to shoulder with Israeli artists, with musicians, and families who protest their own government's ruthless brutality on both sides, just as you can amplify Palestinian voices screaming for freedom and dignity without ever endorsing the war crimes committed in both their names. Jonny Greenwood's collaborations with Tassa and Arab musicians aren't a vote for Netanyahu any more than Thom Yorke's silence is complicity. Art doesn't need to pick a government to pick a side. It can simply say, these people are not their leaders. Take Yorke's pre-show comment on the topic as a prime example. Playing in a country isn't the same as endorsing its government. The real betrayal isn't playing Tel Aviv or Ramallah. It's letting politicians on any side turn human connection into a weapon. And that brings us to the reconnection. In a nondescript London studio, 5 men who hadn't played together in 6 years plugged in. They started with Airbag, the first track on OK Computer, then Creep, out of nostalgia, then Everything in Its Right Place, because why not? Maybe it just felt right. Yorke sent a list of 65 songs. Half were crossed out by the time they broke for tea. We're all frantically learning, Johnny laughed. Then Tom will turn up and say, let's not do half. Ed, who had once told the band he was done, felt something shift. Quote, I went through a very long, dark night of the soul. Hit the bottom in 2021. Coming out of it, I realize now how much I love these guys. Colin planned to decorate his dressing room with AI-generated photos of himself with Mandela, Merkel, and Thomas Cromwell. Philip marveled at the setlist committee. Yorke, Ed himself, deciding the night's songs hours before doors. No 2 shows would be the same. The first night is in Madrid. 20 shows. No backing tracks, no script. But there are surprises. Let Down will sound like a hymn. Idiotech will feel like the end of the world. True Love Waits will break hearts that weren't born when it was written in the 1990s. The teenagers in the front row, 15 to 23, the largest streaming demographic, will scream lyrics their parents taught them. The band will look at each other and remember this music doesn't belong to them anymore. Honestly, it never really did. I'm just stunned we got this far, Yorke said. Outside, the world is still burning. Gaza, climate, politics, purity tests, canceling, boycotts. But inside the arena, for 2 hours, 5 men from Abingdon will play songs that sound like grief, like rage, and like hope. The wheels are back on. The cliff is behind them. The music hurts less now. And the silence, 7 long years, is finally over. Radiohead's 2025 tour began November 4 in Madrid. All shows sold out in minutes. No new album is confirmed, but the songs, they're still alive. The question remains, do you still listen?